Hi, welcome back to Exceptional Explorers. Today on Tuesday Tips, we're going to be talking about how body awareness is important for handwriting skills. So stay tuned. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about today, my own daughter, she's a kindergarten student now. And, handwriting is a huge area of occupational therapy. So it's really kind of, I want to use the word wild to watch my own daughter, coming into her own and learning to write and make those proper letter formations and size and space. And I think a lot of kids, especially in the beginning, they struggle with handwriting. And I think a lot of times, and I'm sure, my parents had this assumption growing up, and parents sometimes have this assumption that handwriting is a just kind of figure it out kind of skill, like many other skills that kids have. They learn, they pick up proper mechanics as they go along, and they're just gonna get it, and when they don't get it, a lot of times it's like, well, do you use the wait and see approach or do you intervene? And the answer to that is yes and or no and no, really depending on the child, depending on the situation. But I think the takeaway from this is that handwriting needs to be taught. There needs to be a curriculum for handwriting. And it's not just, a miracle that some kids are good writers. And it's not, you're not gone forever if your child, if the child has a bad handwriting. So from the get-go, handwriting needs to be taught properly to give kids a chance to really succeed. So you may or may not have heard of programs like Handwriting Without Tears. It's used in classrooms across the country, and sometimes parents buy the materials as well to carry over at home. Sit, and you have to have proper rules of handwriting. You always form your letters top to bottom. Children need something very important to have good handwriting, and that's good awareness of themselves. And what that means is knowing where their body is in space. So if, for example, if you have a good sense of awareness, or your child has a good sense of awareness, they know where their wrists are, they know where their shoulders are, they know where their hips are, they know where their elbows are versus their neck versus their head. And it's not something that you're really aware of as a person, like, oh, of course I know where my body is, this is my body. But if your brain is having a hard time mapping where your body parts are, how can they, or we or anybody hold a pencil properly, right? How could you find the proper way to sit at that chair and position that right arm if your brain isn't really sure where your right arm is or where your left arm is, or your brain isn't really sure that you actually have 5 fingers? And when you see kids at 5 years old, this is why we look at their drawing and we say, okay, can you draw a person? And you should be able to see really strong resemblance to a person. It could be stick figures, but they should have all the proper parts, right? So if you see your child drawing a picture of themselves and they're missing an arm or they're missing fingers, that could be kind of a little bit of a hint to you that maybe there might be some awareness, body awareness, like things going on there. So there are many things you can do to help that. So kids, when kids roughhouse and play, they're not just roughhousing and playing. They're doing that because their brains need that. And when your kids are rolling around on the floor and jumping off the couch and tumbling and fighting, play fighting with their brother or sister, that's excellent, because when your brother or sister is grabbing you and they're grabbing your elbow and you say, hey, that hurts, get off my elbow, that gives your brain a signal that my elbow's there, right? When your child is, trying to push something heavy like a chair across the living room, their body is being told, okay, I'm feeling pressure to my joints, right? So the more that your child does heavy work, the more information their brain is going to get about their body, and the better they're going to do in school. So if you're looking at exercises to further improve their awareness, there is something called body mapping. So you can Google this online, but if you find strips of paper, or even what I like to use, toilet paper rolls, right? And you find toilet paper rolls, or even better, paper towel rolls, because they're longer and they're kind of like our limbs are long. and you give a child a piece of square construction paper, right? So if you put all these materials down, they have to create a body, right? Well, okay, so the square maybe could be the torso, and then you might give them a plate, that could be the head, right? And then you give them a few pieces of strips paper, they could use that for their ears or the eyes or the nose, and then the long tubes can be the arms, right? It makes your brain think about what are the body parts in a person. So that's a really good skill to kind of really stretch that brain a little. Basic games that we all played growing up as a kid. I'm not even sure, if this is done in mainstream classrooms anymore, but hokey pokey, right? You put your right arm in, you put your right arm out, you put elbow in, you put elbow out. Well, that's textbook like body awareness games. Another great game for body awareness is Twister. Again, you have to, figure out how to move your body in funny ways in order to win the game. But the point is, at the end of the day, you really are working on your body awareness. So, sometimes we'll see kids when we ask them to draw a picture of themselves, and they don't really do that. Like they struggle, and then you tell them to take their arms out, and you tap their arms, just tap to bottom, tap, shoulders, tap. Same thing with legs, right? And you kind of wake up the brain and just say, hey, I have all of these limbs here, right? And then when you ask them to draw the photo, they do a much better job. Same thing with fingers. If you stretch your fingers and you do some dissociation with those hands and your wrists and your fingers, all of a sudden they might have 5 fingers instead of 3. So if you see that your child has, any difficulty with handwriting, which again, my daughter's 5, it's very typical. You're not going to see perfect handwriting at that age. But if you do want to see some kind of improvement or something that you're worried about, these basic exercises are really, really helpful to kind of organizing that brain aside from all the other tips that, you'll find online. So go ahead and try it out. Your basic hokey pokey, tapping the body part. Simon Says is a great one. Simon Says touch your head, Simon Says touch your toes, Simon Says touch your knees. So all of those games that have to do with body parts, or even describing your body parts. So if you say, I'm thinking of a body part that's very, very close to your shoulder, but it's not really near your shoulder, but it's higher than your wrist. So, that could be the elbow, right? So things like that. So it makes the kids really, really think about where their body parts are. And again, that helps them organize their brain. It helps them kind of send messages to their joints that they know where they are. And it helps them get organized a little bit. So heavy work, pushing heavy furniture, games, songs about body parts, that's a really good way to get those kiddos ready for handwriting. So thank you guys for tuning in, and stay tuned for next week's Tuesday's tips. Have a good one.